Good evening, and welcome to tonight's Zoning Board of Appeals hearing. Let me introduce some members of town government that assist this board. To my left is Vincent Pizzulli, attorney to the board. To his left is Blaise Donadio, a planner in the planning department. You're all here tonight seeking relief from the Smithtown zoning ordinances, and it's our job to try to help you achieve the relief you are requesting whenever possible. It's up to you to provide us with precise, accurate information so we as a board can make a decision based on the facts that you present here tonight. We as a board must consider the 5 following conditions. They're listed here for you. Number 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the variance. Number 2, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other means. Number 3, whether the variance is substantial. Number 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. And number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. Procedures for tonight's meeting. Cases will be called in the order they are advertised. When you are called, please present your certificates of postings and mailings to Mr. Donadio. Then you'll be asked to go to the podium. We will state your name and address for the record and proceed to tell us why you need your variance. At the end of your presentation, if anyone in the audience would like to speak on your case, they will be given one opportunity to do so. Then the applicant can come back to the podium to answer their concerns. Once the public hearing is closed, no further information will be accepted concerning the case. There are 3 ways to find out about your case. You can stay after the hearing, but there's no guarantee that your case will be acted on tonight. You can call the planning office tomorrow afternoon, or you can wait and be notified by mail. We do have some adjournments tonight. First case is case number 18279, Tad and Kelly Krasowski. Anyone here for that case? That has been adjourned to April 21st. The next case is case number 18283, CCI Design and Build Corporation. That has been adjourned to March 24th. And case number 1-18245, 779A Middle Country Road. That has been adjourned to February 25th. I don't know which Marco is. And those are the cases that are adjourned for tonight. I know at the beginning I said cases are going to be called in the order they are advertised. Unfortunately, we have to move one case up. It's going to be very short, so we're going to move it to the front. That's case 18287.
I have to find the graphics. Yeah, I'm going to read it. The first case of the evening is case number 18287, Deirdre and Philip Prezetta, 38 Maple Avenue, Kings Park. The location of the property, the southeast corner of Maple Avenue and Avenue K. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum front yard on Maple Avenue from 40 feet to 23 feet, which is existing at 26 feet, for an existing 24-square-foot portico.
Good evening.
Hi. Donald King, 75 East Main Street, Kings Park, New York. Thank you for moving me up. You guys approved this house, and I'm going to submit a photo of the house is built, and we just need this little tiny portico in the front.
All right, thank you, Mr. King. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No question.
No? Planning?
No, thank you.
Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved. Second?
Moved and second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
very much.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18276, Timothy and Gail Patericus, 235 Route 111, Smithtown. The location of the property is the east side of Hopog Road, Route 111, 327 feet south of Cross Street. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a special exception to permit temporary living quarters for parents, a variance of a special exception standard for living quarters that does not have a floor plan that is economical or practical to convert back to a single-family residence.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Gail Paterakis, 235 Route 111, Smithtown, New York. I'm asking for a special permission so we can build my parents an apartment. They're living with us right now, so.
I'm sorry, who lives with you now?
My parents are
your
living with
parents.
us right now, but it's, so that's why we want to build.
Which will be for your parents?
Correct.
Okay. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Blaze, I believe Planning Department came up with a sketch that's feasible for them to convert it back?
Well, not even so much a sketch, but really basically a suggestion. There is an access point between the existing single-family dining room area and the proposed washroom going into the kitchen. That area can be widened, and the door separating that area between the dining room and the wash area can be removed, and they would have unrestricted access to the entire area.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone on the board have any questions on the application?
No question.
No? Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved. Second?
Moved and second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next application on the agenda, case number 18277, Ministerio Jesu Cristo Vive Church, 436 Edgewood Avenue, Smithtown. The location of the property is the south side of Edgewood Avenue, 174 feet east of River Road. The property is zoned R43. The applicant is requesting variances to pave the front yard greater than 25% to approximately 59%, to reduce the parking setback in the front yard from 60 feet to 20 feet, to reduce the parking setback in the west side yard from 60 feet to 3 feet, and the east side yard from 60 feet to 17 feet, to permit accessory uses on a vacant residentially zoned parcel, reduce the minimum front yard setback from 60 feet to 45 feet on Edgewood Avenue, and from 60 feet to 39 feet on River Road for an existing playground.
Okay. Computer malfunction. You all right? All right. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. My name is Ramon Jaques, pastor at Jesus Christ Leads Ministry in the property 436 Edgeworth Avenue.
All right. Can you just spell your last name, Ramon, so we get it for the record correctly?
Yeah, Jaques, Jaquez.
Thank you. You would like this gentleman to speak on your behalf?
Yes, sir.
Are the young ladies going to speak?
No, they go to speak.
If they need, I got some.
Okay, we'll bring them up later if they want to say
Yeah.
something.
For the record, my name is Michael Morbillo, architect and Spire Design Group. My office is located at 273 Lake Avenue in St. James, New York. And if I need them to speak, I'll ask them to be brought into the record. The application before you this evening is actually for, as was in the call of the meeting, is for two properties. Both are owned by the applicant, the church, and I'm going to have two parts of my presentation, just one which is a little bit simpler, which has to do with the existing property, which is the where the church is located on the north side of Edgewood. As you can see in the call of the meeting, there the northern part of the property, or the north parcel, in our application is basically, it's for an existing playground area that is located on the basically on the west side of the building, towards the southwest corner, and the playground that's there had originally been approved on a site plan going back a little over 30 years for about a 900 square foot playground area. And recently, the owners had been made aware when they were notified by the town that they had some illegal structures on the property. There had been a storage container. There had been a shed. There had been some other construction that was done over the years by the previous owner, which was Temple Beth Shalom. They had the previous owners had expanded this play area. They had a preschool and daycare program, and so it's been in existence for, I'd say, well over 25 years. It's 20 to 30 years in that time frame. And so part of this application is for them to legalize this this playground, which is approximately 2,800 square feet in area. And the church would like to keep it in case they ever decide to have a preschool program in their congregation. So they sought to maintain it. It's pretty well shielded on the west side by trees, so it doesn't really have an impact. It's been in the neighborhood for some time now. So that's a little bit simpler portion of the application. They're seeking two front yard setback requirements, on that to reduce it. It's not going to have any environmental impact or anything. They have, probably since these pictures were taken, I'm pretty sure they cleared away most of these sort of older plastic playground type structures, and they've cleaned up that portion of the property. So it doesn't really have an impact on the neighborhood. It's not going to go against anything in the 5 criteria. The main part of this application is primarily for proposed playground across the street from the church, and that would be on the south side of Edgewood Avenue. My clients had been in front of this board initially on May 8th of 2018. At that time, they were proposing about a 30,000 square foot, what we call like a soccer field on the property. They were proposing 30-foot high nets around the perimeter lighting. We came before this board, and the planning department had recommended denial at that time. Since that time, they also had some issues with bamboo on the property, which they've cleared out. I'd got to say about 99% of the bamboo. Their neighbor that is to the south of them graciously put in a root barrier along her property because she didn't want anything to come in there, and she put up a new fence. The neighbor to the to the west, I apologize, on the corner, they're looking to the church is looking to put in a weed barrier in the very near future. It's a root barrier. They're still somewhat persistent, and they intend to take care of that. They were contacted by code enforcement on that. Going back to the previous request, though, that was denied back in 2018. The objections of the planning department was that we were proposing structures on the property, which was the form of these poles and netting, and that was an issue. They also didn't like the idea of pedestrians kind of crossing from the church on the north side of Edgewood to the property on the south side. They also, again, the high fencing was considered substantial, so they recommended that. They had also, in their letter, they had made mention about alternative uses of the property. The property had previously been a residence, which, to my understanding, was condemned, and it was torn down. The property was, in turn, sold at a reduced price. My client wound up purchasing it from another religious institution, had maybe ideas about putting up a small worship center there. After we were denied, we met with the planning department sometime later on, and probably this, I'll say, as late as this past summer. We met with planning staff, discussed the usage of the property, recommendations appeared to be keep it as simple as possible. We have a proposal right now which basically intends to change very little on the property. Presently, there's a fence that's along the perimeter of the property on the south and west side of the property. There's a very dilapidated, if not completely damaged fence that separates on the east side, which separates my client's property from the Grace Church. And there's a 4-foot chain link fence, which is in the front yard, that has a what once was 2 sets of gates into each. There was 2 curb cuts on each end of the property. Part of the application that we have now, if we're able to maybe bring up the site plan, is historically there was a horseshoe-shaped driveway on the property, and the curb cuts still exist. My clients would like to basically kind of restore that driveway to get some limited vehicle access onto the property. They're proposing like a gravel driveway. So what you're seeing is generally in the location of the existing driveway is where they're proposing a gravel driveway. Off of that area, they're proposing a number of parking spaces to address or mitigate the safety factor that the town planning department had brought up at the last hearing. As I mentioned, the last application, we were looking at a playground or soccer field area that was approximately close, 29,500, about 30,000. This application, that was about 50% bigger than the current application, which is about 19,500 square feet is the play area. Pardon me, generally the play area, yep, got it.
The application was bigger, about 50% bigger than the corner application.
Yeah, so to repeat that, the previous application was about, the play field area or the soccer field was about 50% larger than the current proposal for the play field. Also, on the last application, we were looking more of like a field with lines and other things. Generally, the use of this playground area, they want it for children in the church. They want to be able to go in there, kick around a ball, throw around a frisbee, whatever sort of recreational purposes they'd like for the children. And we've tried to push that area back away from Edgewood Avenue. As indicated on the site plan, we've bounded that playground area with like green giant arborvitaes that generally grow to 20 to 30 feet in height once fully mature. We're also proposing some shielding of the parking area, and by bringing some of that landscaping along the property line up front. And I know that the request or the call of the meeting does state that, the appearance of the request seems pretty substantial, and I'll go into those. This has to do with the parking setbacks. In a residential area, for non-residential uses need to maintain a 60-foot setback. And from parking, so that's the requirement. However, if you look at the site plan, and I don't think I can really argue so much with the zoning, denier or the zoning inspector on this, but he's saying we're asking for a 3-foot setback on the west side and a 17-foot setback on the east side. The parking is easily about 35 feet. So they're including the driveway in this, and there's already a driveway there. It seems more like a site plan issue, but you need access to a parking area. The site is somewhat limited in width. If you fully adhered to 60-foot setbacks, it's 174 feet wide. I'd have a 54-foot parking area, and including the driveway. So I think that may have been an oversight and maybe something to reevaluate as part of the decision-making process. Is those driveway areas are being included in the parking setbacks. It's clear for the front yard setback that that's the case because we have a 20-foot setback, which we're buffering with planting. But I call into question the side yard setbacks, which are saying 3 feet, which is as much as 35 feet, and they're saying 17 feet, which is as much as 47 feet. So either way, that's it's not something that's entirely new to the character of the property. There was a driveway there. We're looking to place something in that same general location. If we go through some of the other items, this is an accessory use to the church. So being that there's no primary structure or primary use on the property, that we're also before you for this request. It's not uncommon for churches and other things to have these other sort of secondary uses. Or my own church I go to in St. James, they're basically on a compound across the street. You cross over, you go into different areas. There's adjacent property where we have a playground crossing a right-of-way, or what was a right-of-way, now an abandoned right-of-way. So it's not uncommon for churches to kind of branch out and utilize adjacent sites. The previous denial said that, listen, this could be used for something else. It could be put back to a house. I think that, if you look along Edgewood Avenue, my recollection of the area, I don't recall any new houses being built on Edgewood in a long time. Certainly people have renovated. They have built homes and developments along Edgewood Avenue, but I don't, if you look at maybe Ebo Hill, which burned down, but I don't recall too many houses being built along Edgewood Avenue, because generally it's a main road, and that's not an easy sell for somebody, especially moving into Smithtown. It's not the easiest thing for somebody to sell a new house on, which is essentially a main road. So I would argue that it's easy to say, okay, you could just put a house up on it, back up on it. If I had lost my house and I got insurance money to rebuild it, yeah, then that's fine. But this is now a vacant piece of property, and we're looking to keep this primarily as an open use with the playground. Also, in regards to sort of, I'll say, precedent for the parking setback, at least for us, the 20 feet, you need to look no further than across the street to see that there's not a 20-foot setback for the church parking from the street. And probably in a couple instances, certainly along Edgewood, you get down to Whisper Vineyards, they have a little peculiar kind of parking area there. You go down to Elks Lodge, parking's it doesn't meet the 60-foot setback requirement there. So I wouldn't say this is entirely uncommon for this type of primary street to have this type of parking there. And again, it's being placed in the area where there was a driveway. I think so just to kind of summarize, this is a different application than what had been before this board a couple of years ago, substantially reduced. We've looked to mitigate in the design something that certainly has a much less of an impact on the neighborhood. We are looking to do substantial plantings to limit that impact also. It's not going to have an environmental effect. It's basically just an open field. My client certainly purchased this property, so it could be debatable as to whether this was self-created because they're looking for an alternate use, but they did purchase this property with the intent of using it for recreational purposes. Lastly, as I probably stated the last time I was here on this, a playground, park, this is an as-of-right use for this property. It doesn't say that it has to be a public playground or a public park. It's an as-of-right use. Certainly, limits can be placed on how the parking is arranged or the planning department looks like, but it's my client's right to utilize this property in this way, whether there's no parking or anything else. If the board has any questions at this time, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Blaze and I were there on Monday. We rode around. Place needs a lot of work.
Yeah.
Needs a lot of work. Gutters are falling off, leaders are falling off, but I was concerned with the parking area. You're gonna have to repave in there. If you're gonna repave in there, did you give any thought to putting the playground at the east end of the parking lot? This way, everything is self-contained on that property, because last time I had a concern with kids that have to go to the bathroom. You're gonna be crossing Edgewood,
Yeah.
you know? If it was moved over there, the area that's a proposed playing field is made into a, say, an overflow parking lot?
They did consider that, and, that parking area has a lot of drainage and other things on it that have a lot of value. My sense and our discussions is that, it's going to cost a lot more to develop parking across the street than to leave what they already have. So, I mean, they're talking about clearing and planting some grass and doing other things. So that option was looked at, and there's also a circumstance, and granted, the same circumstance could occur with parking across the street, is Grace Church uses that parking area for overflow on their holidays and other things, or different events, they'll work out arrangements with them. So, so basically, I'm sorry, I don't know if I heard something. So, generally, that was, considered. The church is a not-for-profit group. They are looking to make improvements on the property. A lot of their improvements depend on how well things are received. They are actually paying off that property right now. They have a short-term mortgage. They're paying it off, so a lot of their funds are going to paying off that property that they just purchased, a couple of years ago. So, so their funds are limited, but they are aware that they need to make repairs. They are looking to make improvements. They have done things to clean up the property, and they would like to continue in that vein. So they're aware that, there's certain maintenance things, but I don't think there are any insurmountable maintenance things. The building itself is a brick building. There's certainly some cosmetic things like you've addressed on the outside, whether it's gutters or other things that need to be handled, but not anything that's, I think, of major consequence.
Now, on the playground, the playground is not in use presently.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, they're planning on using it? Are they gonna have a daycare there?
No. Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking about the playground on the
Yeah, the
north side? Yeah, it's
playground,
not, no, they want to keep their option open if they, if they have a preschool or daycare program to keep it. It's been there for decades, so, it's something that, as their congregation grows, they may have that need, and they don't want to just, again, throw away a resource of something that's already there.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Anybody on the board have any questions?
Not being a lawyer, could you please explain to me how it's an as-of-right use for a playground in a residential area? Where in the code can I find it?
It's on the, sure. So the second one that's highlighted, one is for the church, the top one. The bottom one lists what the permitted uses are.
Thank you.
Sure.
Just one other question.
Yeah.
I'll go back to the proposed playing field. You're planning to put up a new chain link fence, 6 foot high, all around the property?
No.
Like 4 feet in the front?
No, there's a 4-foot one that's there now. It's in disrepair. They would like to either repair or replace what's there now.
That's in the front?
That's in the front. On the west side, the neighbor has an existing fence that's already there. On the south side, the neighbor also has a fence that's there. It's a wood fence. I think it's a vinyl fence on the west side. There's a dilapidated, if not entirely destroyed, wood fence that's on the east side between them and the church, Grace Church. So that one will be replaced. Yeah, that one will be replaced with either a wood or 6-foot wood or fence, something in conformance to code. Not to exceed the code height requirements.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else have any questions?
That's it.
Planning?
Just a couple of things from Mr. Morbillo. Currently, the daycare use that was on the property is not in operation at this time, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you did mention that your client was considering that if the congregation expands, they would like to have a daycare facility perhaps there in the future, utilize the existing playground that's there now.
They've expressed that to me, yes, yeah.
Is there any possibility that they would consider modifying the size of the existing playground? It may not necessarily come into complete conformity with setback requirements, but they could make it substantially better than what it is now.
Absolutely, they would. Yeah, they've discussed that. I think the general discussions at the planning meeting is whatever the planning department would, prefer as far as size and shape, and consistent with, what's appropriate for the area. They would definitely go in that direction with it.
Okay. And one question regarding the vacant lot across the street. I'm looking at the site plan that's up on the screen now, and I noticed that there aren't any of the existing trees on the property that would remain. So
Yeah.
I would assume that any trees that are left on the property would be removed.
Generally, if the ones around the perimeter, they would keep. If we did a walking survey of the trees on the site, many are very dilapidated that are more on the interior. We actually did set the parking that's in the front. We measured the location of the substantial, or I'll say historic trees that are healthy, and we placed the parking behind them. So those are not, there's no intent to touch any of those in the front.
So there is some form of tree preservation in the plan?
Yes.
Should it
yeah.
move forward?
Yes, absolutely, yeah, yeah. The intent was perimeter trees keep in place, and the trees along the front keep in place. There's a stand of trees that are in the middle, which are small diameter or very kind of sickly trees, which would probably be thinned out. They might be in the general area where we're proposing some landscaping between the driveway area and the playground. But yeah, the intent is to keep as many of the healthy trees as possible.
Okay. That's it, thank you.
I do have one question.
Sure.
You said that maybe in the future you'll be using it, there may be a daycare center there.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Are you considering having these children from the daycare center cross that street to
No.
go into that parking?
No.
Into that playground?
No, not at all. No, not at all. They have used, in a previous location church, they generally, anything that's with children or anything else, everything is monitored. If there's any children playing in that playground, again, it's a private area, they are there, there's adults there with them. It's not like children are going in there.
understand
They have
that.
no intent for that, any type of small children to be, that are part of any sort of preschool or daycare program to be utilizing that field. That's, that's in part why they're saying they want to keep that area that's there now. So that's, they have no intent to use that for that purpose.
All right, is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? All right, come on up one at a time, please. Good evening.
Hello, how are you?
Could you state your name, spell your last name for the record, and
Sure.
give your address, please?
Sure. Kevin Killelea, Killilea. It's 434 Edgewood Avenue, Smithtown.
Thank you.
And I am directly next door on the west side, directly affected by this. There's a lot of concern. This parking lot is something new here now. The original plan, I was not liking at all with the nets and everything like that, but now you can see, my house is on the west side. I'll be staring into a parking lot. And what I'm afraid of at some point is if this gets passed, that, they're going to want some lights in this parking lot at some point. The parking lot seems really big to me. It's the whole length of my front yard and my house. I understand the field is smaller. There was mention way back of this being some type of pocket park. It doesn't seem that way to me. There's only mention of like a row of green giant arborvitaes. I was told originally at some point that there would be 20 feet of landscaping from the fence line all around. That does not seem to be the case now. The bamboo that they say is gone will be back, absolutely will be back. I did hear mention of them putting in a weed barrier, which is good, but I hope they follow through with that, because the bamboo is an issue. I have a pool right on the other side of the fence. I have a filter, pool filter right there. This could be very, very bad. So this doesn't belong here, you know. It doesn't belong here. They have land across the street, 3.5 acres. Somehow, some way, they should be able to find the space for this. They don't need to put a parking lot here. They don't need this field. It's going to be a hangout. It's going to be a hangout when they're not there. There's going to be other kids. That's what I'm concerned about. There's going to be other kids on this park here that's kind of covered with the arborvitaes in the front now. You're not going to be able to see back there. There's going to be kids hanging out. We had it in the past when the house was there, the dilapidated house. We had kids on there selling drugs, and it's going to be an issue. So these are some concerns I have. I just feel, you know, it doesn't belong here. It really doesn't. There's other places to go. You know, they can go to the Smithtown Armory. They can go somewhere else to play soccer. I know that's what they want to do. They want to play soccer. You know, so, you know, those nets that, you know, you're not going to put up, they'll bring their own nets. They'll be playing soccer there. It's going to be loud. It's going to be noisy. My backyard is right there. I mean, I didn't move here to be next to a park. I moved here for privacy. You know, it just doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit. And they should go somewhere else. I mean, you know, they have plenty of land across the street. I mean, somehow you could fit this in there, but this shouldn't be.
right.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else? Come on up, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Don Cantwell, Cantwell. I want to start by sharing some of my credentials with the board so they can evaluate my comments. I'm a licensed professional engineer. I hold a master's degree in transportation engineering, and I've been active in transportation issues on and off throughout my residence in the town since 1980. To start out with, I think the overall request is excessive, quite excessive. There are actually two issues that I think are worth talking about here, both the existing Tipple property and the new proposed park offing. First one is the traffic issue. The architect correctly identified that Edgewood is busy. It is still the 5th busiest road in the town. The proposed where they're talking about the curb cuts, one of the curb cuts is 175 feet from the intersection with the River Road, which is a very, very active intersection, quite a number of accidents. We see them all the time. I live in that corner. The town itself has, if I understand the code correctly, if we have a non-residential use that's next to a resident, there's a series of requirements that the town, at least according to what I saw online, requires. The first one is that there'd be no more than 2 curb cuts, and they would have to be at least 75 feet apart. And each of those have to be at least 75 feet from the adjacent residential property, which, I also question why we need 2 curb cuts in a park of this kind. If it is approved, I would recommend that the one on the west side be eliminated. You do not need a U-shaped driveway for 10 parking spots. So I think that that's something that would need to be considered. Also, the town code calls for a minimum of 25 foot of dense planting between any residential area and any non-residential use. That's in the town code again. I'd also like to talk a little bit about this particular parcel. I know the board here had, a number of years ago, there was a case before the prior owners were looking to put a very large interior lighted blue and white sign, and they came to the BZA. It was not approved. What was approved, and the property there that the church is on is in the river corridor, so it's under the LWRP. The LWRP has a whole series of additional requirements for what's allowed for signs. LWRP signs have to be on the ground. They have to be brown and can have white lettering, and they have size restriction as well. The decision that was made at that time was to allow the ground sign with the blue and white lighting, letters, externally lighted. It has to be turned off by 10 p.m. And after that decision was rendered, it was largely followed. There were three conditions in that decision. The first one was the existing shed on River Road had to be removed. That's been done. The playground in front of the yard was to be removed. That's not been done. The dumpsters were to be shielded from residential view. That's not been done either. And although the architect did mention it, I saw that in the application that he was looking for relief from that requirement. The sign that is there, since the church has taken it, they've modified the sign. It is now elevated. It's no longer brown and white. Doesn't meet the LWRP sign requirements. The church also seems to have some issues with compliance. There have been a number of cases where they had very large red and white advertising signs for soccer programs in Stony Brook and other places. Granted, they're gone now, but it took I know it took several visits from the town code enforcement to do that. So I would submit that to the board's consideration. The applicant comes with what I would call maybe not totally unclean hands, but not totally clean hands as well. They've not demonstrated that they are totally compliant with all the requirements that we have. And I will submit that some residents don't always comply either, and that's why we have enforcement in the BZA. I did want to make the point that the playground is, quite honestly, is an eyesore. The plastic structures there have been there a long time. They're faded, they're aging, they don't look good at all, and they are not visible to the houses. I can see them from my house. The gentleman who's just spoke before, I know I can see him from his house, and anybody who drives by Edgewood or River Road can clearly see those structures. So I really urge the board to carefully consider this. I think it is a truly excessive use, and I would submit to the church, if they've bought the property and they're looking for investment, I like the suggestion before about putting the playground contiguous with the church property. Perhaps if they sold the lot, it would give them capital to do the work that would need to be done to make that a better approach for the entire community. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else? Come on up. What's that?
Do we have to stop?
No, go ahead after you.
He has to stop.
All right. 1 second while we change the tape. All right. Okay. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Dale Peretz, 20 Twixt Hills Road.
Could you spell your last name, please, for the record?
Peritz.
Thank you.
We are actually probably one of the oldest residents here. We're an original owner on Twixt Hills Road, living here for 51 years. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Okay. I said we're probably the oldest, maybe by age as well, but certainly living in our home for 51 years on Twixt Hills Road. The area was originally, you probably all know, cluster zoned, so that we wouldn't have things in our backyards. This particular thing does not affect my husband and I as homeowners at all. First of all, I'd like to address the architect. I believe he's probably mistaken about it ever being a daycare center. I lived here when the Temple had their nursery school on Glamour Court. Eventually, it may have come to the Temple, I'm not really certain. The one thing I do see is, living in Smithtown, we are blessed with many, many parks and many, many recreational areas for children and playgrounds. And I certainly think that wherever most of the people from the church come, hopefully they have the same thing. I don't feel they should be coming to Smithtown to use the playgrounds. In addition to which, I think it's hazardous. The children certainly will cross the street. As I said, it doesn't affect me personally, but the people living next door and behind that, it's really unfair. They didn't sign up to live next to a school or next to a playground. And that's all I have to say. I'm very opposed to it.
Thank you. Sir?
James Santora, 204 Fifth Street, St. James.
Spell your last name, please.
Santora.
Thank you.
I won't take up too much of your time. Subsection 322.12 of the Town Code, except for underground septic systems, no accessory use shall be permitted unless it is on the same plot and in the same class of zoning district as an existing permitted or lawfully non-conforming principal use. Despite what the applicant's representative claims that this is a right of use for him, that directly contradicts what he said about 2 minutes prior to that, where he said this is an accessory use to the church, which we all know that's what this application really is for. It is not a right of use. So I just wanted to get that on record.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Linda
You
Natale.
can pull that down. There you go. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Linda Natale. I live at 33 Mark Drive,
Could you just spell your last name, please, Linda?
Natale. 33 Mark Drive. I live a few blocks away from this, not directly affected, but I have friends that are. And I really wanted to say that I feel that you should think about the fact that if you bought a house and there was a house next door, and you want to keep the value of your own house, to have this come in and to put in a park with noise and different things is really not fair to the current homeowners who the perimeter of this property. I think that that can cause a place for drug dealing to go on, especially when you have the hidden part behind the parking lot. And I think that's a big concern. I think as far as them saying that they're going to use it for a preschool to play or not, there are going to be people crossing the street. The street is very dangerous. There's no way that they're not going to drive here and use that playground and then leave. You're either there for something to go on at the church and then use across the street, or vice versa. So and you're not going to move your car from the church parking lot to this lot. It's right across the street. So you're going to have people crossing the street. It's a very dangerous road. You can't have that. I mean, as far as traffic is concerned, the YMCA was knocked down for that area. The other woman pointed out that Smithtown has tons of parks. We do. We have plenty of parks for our kids. If anything, we could use a bike park or a skate park more, but we don't need a soccer field like this. We have Marich's Road. We have put in so many. We're really known to be full of parks. It's a wonderful place to live. I really think that you really have to look at the fact that the kids are going to be crossing the street. And not little children, but teenagers and parents. And even a parent crossing that street's not safe. It doesn't have a crosswalk. It's just not a safe place. My understanding that they were supposed to remove all the bamboo, and I know some of it was removed, but it's still encroaching on the neighbor's property. It's grown into their properties, and that has not been removed. So I think they need to stand up and stand behind what they said. As far as what they should do with this property, I think that the neighbors, when they heard that the church bought the property, they were assuming that they were going to put on a house and have a pastor's house there, so he could live right across the street or on the premises like they do at other churches. You know, Smithtown Gospel Tabernacle owns several churches near it, and I think that's a wonderful use of the property to have, so he doesn't have to travel far. But I don't think this use is fair to the neighbors. I really don't.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Malina Santora, and I am
Could you spell your last name, please?
Santora.
Thank you.
I'm at 5 Glamour Court. I'm the site neighbor of the property, and perhaps I'm the key player of this case. When I bought this property in 2012, I moved from Melville, wonderful property, and I moved because when it was 10 or 11 p.m., I heard the background noise of expressway. So I carefully choose the place for my kids, the school, and my home to be for as long as I live, and I choose Smithtown. I choose it because I love the neighborhood. I still say I love. I hope I can say it a year from now, not loved. Because of the trees, because of the neighborhood, because of the peace and quiet at night. I knew the Grace Church wasn't my next door neighbor. The person who was selling the house, that was the first thing I asked. She said they here on Sunday and once a week, and they're very respectful. And I must say that is the case. I live on dead-end street. Sometimes the cars pass by, but I never ever had any issues with that church. So I suppose the best way to operate is based on facts and things that you can prove or submit in writing. For a living, I work, I'm proud to say that I make serious medications. I'm daily reviewed and audited by the FDA and DEA, and what I do at work, I operate on things that you can prove. And here are the things that I can present, not repeating myself, not getting sentimental, even though I cried many times, but I just want to say things that I can prove or I was able to witness. When I bought the house, I knew that the light will be shining to my kitchen door from the Grace Church. Yet the area on the south side, the area in question, was still full of woods, and it was all right. Right now, if the plan will go through, I will be exposed from my children's bedrooms, my sliding door, and my bedroom to lights and noise and whatever else. So again, just keep in mind that I just want to say things that I can prove or I did witness. It was said that the trees on the property in question was chosen carefully and some of they will stay alive. They all removed. The only trees that stayed are on my property, on the property of my neighbors. I also appreciate the way I was presented before. Mike said that I graciously put the barrier, the fence and the barrier along my property. I wouldn't say it was gracious project for me because $10,000 later, I am still not comfortable with the percentage. 99% of the bamboo was removed from the property in question. I know I removed 99, hopefully 100% of the bamboo. I talked to the pastor, I talked to him, then I sent messages. And at the beginning, we had a conversation, and then I had none. I must admit that the attorney representing the case was responding to my messages and was very kind with his words, but no action taken. When I, on the end, said that I can swallow the cost of removing the bamboo on my end, just to not take too much time, but when I bought the property, it was the house, the vacant house and property. After that, the house was removed. After that, like 2 years later or a year later, the bamboo was removed. However, the bamboo was removed only for the surface. What it did to my property, it speeded up, the English is just tough for me right now, but the bamboo roots moved so fast into my property that like in 6 months, 30 meters from the fence, I had to remove all the roots and the bamboos. That was extremely costly project. So after that, I was forced to put fence and the barrier in the ground so the bamboo will not grow back. You must know, being town personnel, that like the waste is treated differently when it comes to bamboos. Everything is just much more expensive than removing irregular trees. So I assume all of that cost. Right now, I put the barrier, and it's there. What I propose is, what about you covering half of the price of the barrier that I would not ever have to put if that wouldn't be the issue on the other side? I was told that when they bought the property, the bamboo was there already. Yes. But what spread the growth of the bamboo to my side was the removing only the surface of the bushes on the property in question. So I must admit, I am a little lost in my thoughts right now, but I am not sure. When you were told something else once, you may question the future plans, and that's what is happening with me right now. I am questioning the plan that nobody will cross the road. No kids will cross the road going from one side to the other. The traffic is just, I cannot even imagine to having parking lot on this side. Sometimes when I go home and I see one car making left to the Grace Church, which is happening once a week, whichever car stops and makes a left there, stops the traffic. 2 minutes later, it's 5 or 10 cars behind them. If there is a parking lot and playground there, that is just, I cannot even imagine the traffic, which is already the worst. And someone had mentioned that there are no houses to be built along Edgewood. Yes, Celestial Court, they have residential houses being built right now. There is another house down the road, I forgot, but there is also a new development. So not the case. And I operate on facts and the true facts. So, and whatever was I heard, it's not actually the case. Well, I have, like I said, I have a lot of notes, but I'm very emotional right now. And I just want to say that all of you came here because you want to support the neighborhood, because you think it's right thing to do to the town. I am the person whose children's bedroom and my sliding door will be facing the parking lot and the activities. I am not the bad guy. I have 2 children on my own. I think there is a right place and right situation and right activity to each place, each time. This is simply not something I honestly say I signed for. I signed for a house that I will be looking at the trees, not parking lot, not the lights. I understand things are changing since 2012, things changed. I really want to support the church, but this is not the way to do it. I heard another lie. This is like Grace Church is using the parking lot on the opposite side to park the cars? No.
Yes.
No. Please.
I am there. I'm as far as you are sitting from the Grace Church. I'm there for 12 years. They never had issues with parking lot when the place. That's all I want to say. I just say I operate on something I see or I can prove. That's one thing. Another, it is just at one point, when I must admit again, and I know I'm going for too long, but this is the case is so close to my heart. And not being the person who wants to be the bad guy, I honor the need, or I honor for the kids to play outside, for people to have outdoor activities. I do know that. I have my kids, and I know it's too much electronics. I know all of that. But again, there is a place and time for everything. Smithtown, next to Edgewood, is not the place to have another playground or parking lot. We bought these houses for other reason. And I truly trust that you, the people who were put in your position to have Smithtown to be the most unique place of this island, to have the current resident to be happy and proud. And again, I'm not saying the proposal is wrong. It's just not the right place. And I am the person who not graciously put the barrier and the fence. I had to do it to save my property, and I was offered no help whatsoever. Thank you, and I'm sorry for being too long.
Thank you. Anyone else? Good evening.
Flocari, Floccari. My family resides at 11 Long Hill Road, Smithtown, for over 25 years, which is right by Grace Church. And I absolutely know that they do not use the Temple's parking lot in the 25 years I've lived here. My daughter volunteered at their camp, and they keep their activities at the Grace Church. I work as an RN in the emergency room at Stony Brook, which is a level 1 trauma center. I brought this up 2 years ago when this ridiculous idea of children crossing Edgewood Avenue was brought up. Perhaps people need to walk into an emergency room and see what happens when pedestrians get killed or run over on a road. I have to make that left turn every day when I return from my job to get onto River Road to enter my development. I have to wait at a light. I obstruct traffic because it's no turning lane there. Try not to get killed because people who are going towards St. James go around the people going on towards River Road, towards Short Beach, and hope that I don't get killed. I have 2 children who are fairly new drivers. They're instructed not to go on that road when they drive. I also watch a lot of people overdose on drugs at work. A daily basis, a daily occurrence. If you think this idea is appropriate, and you have a middle school down the road, and we all know what children can do, and I've seen parents in shock that their lovely white middle-class child is a user. Well, it happens in every community. And I would think that everybody in this room knows somebody who's been touched by that. You are inviting such a catastrophe to a community where people brought homes to raise children, raise their families, and work hard for their money. And I think this is just an outrageous idea. And everybody should be considering, would you consider this right next to your home? I think you all should think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Joseph Lee, L-E-E, 271 River Road, Smithtown. I was here 2 years ago when you had this meeting. I remember one of the things that was brought up was that if you lived within a certain distance, you were supposed to be notified of any meeting. How much is that distance from that property that you have to be notified?
I believe it's 200 feet.
I live within 200 feet. If you were to break that property into 4 squares, I'm the square on a diagonal, so I'm not impacted as much as the other folks, but I still come right up to the property. I wasn't notified. If it wasn't for my neighbor telling me, I wouldn't have been here tonight. And that's number one. Number two, some of the things that were brought up tonight, without going over them, but she brought up a good point about the turns. The last time I mentioned, I was a police officer in Nassau County for 30-plus years. There's a tremendous amount of accidents at that corner. Not all of them are reported. They're not all major. A lot of them are fender benders. People just get out, exchange information, no police, they drive away. I now, when I come home, if I'm coming from, say, St. James, instead of coming up the river to turn, I turn into the church parking lot. I'm one of the guys that was mentioned about tying traffic up, because it's a lot safer for me to do that than to try to get up to, to the corner to make the turn. The other thing that was mentioned, I think it was asked the last time, are there going to be bathroom facilities for these kids? Number one. Number two, actually, number one is, how old are these kids going to be? Do we know? Do you know? Are they going to be preteens, teens? If they're going to be teens, you're going to have problems in the long run. As was mentioned before, I've also been I've been a soccer player from the time I was 13 till I was 57, and a coach at high school, club, and college. So I think I know a little bit about soccer. If you're going to have soccer there, if you're going to have older teenagers there, eventually you're going to have adults there. I guarantee you that, all right? And then you're going to have problems, because what are they going to do if they cause a problem? If you're going to call the cops, are they going to come down? Are they going to have, excuse me, are they going to have to try to remove them? I would like to know what age the people that are going to be there are going to be. Thirdly, next, excuse me a minute. I just wrote these up because, like I said, I wasn't notified. It was said about building, there's been no buildings along there. Basically, that's true, except for Borelli's farmland, there's nothing available to build unless you buy a house and tear it down. So I don't understand why that was even brought up. My last thing is, if this property was not approved and they wanted to build a house there, assuming they met all the requirements, would the town approve that? Do you know? You think they would. I know you can't give a guarantee, but let's say they met all the requirements for a house to be built there. Would you approve that?
If they meet your requirements,
Wouldn't come to us.
Okay,
They're
so
allowed.
that's fine.
Yeah.
So that is an alternative for them if this, for any reason, was not approved. That's,
all right,
I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
thank you very much. Anyone else?
My name is Lynn Barnhart, Barnhardt. I'm actually here for a different item tonight, but I happen to live 2 blocks away from this, and I was not notified of this. And I've been in my home for 21 years, and the traffic on Edgewood is just out of hand. And when the YMCA wanted to do a bigger playground, bigger area, we shut it down because we cannot take any more traffic. I can't even go down Edgewood Avenue. Most of the time I have to go around the town, through the streets, because you can't even travel. It's a neighborhood. It's a neighborhood that got built up and doesn't even have sidewalks, and we can't have more traffic. I mean, and that would create so much traffic, you're gonna ruin. It is a neighborhood. It is not a part that's supposed to have parks and all that. And the church itself could, use some updating in our neighborhood.
Thank you. Come on up.
Hi.
Good evening.
My name is Bridget Killily. I live right south. I'm on the corner of Edgewood and River.
Can you spell your last name, please?
Killilea.
Thank you.
I just don't understand how they think that they could put a parking lot 3 feet from someone's property line when they have bedroom windows. I mean, you're going to have kids there screaming from morning till, probably from sun up till sundown. So where does that give the people that live in the neighborhood their privacy and their enjoyment to enjoy their yard without having to hear kids screaming all day? Because I tell you what, I don't think anybody in this room would want that next to their house, within 15, 20 feet of their house. And I just pray to God that you guys make the right decision and do not allow this. That's what I wanted to say.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Bill Kirschbaum, Kirschbaum. I live on Twixt Hills Road, 16. There's been a lot of talk about codes and everything like that. I just have a few basic comments. The proposals that I'm listening to and seeing, there's no solid no solid evidence of what the plan is. It's we may become a nursery school, we may have this, we may do soccer, we may do that, we may do this, we may do that. Not good enough. We need to know exactly what's going on. And as far as nursery schools and things like that, the church is from what town, Central Islip? You're going to bus kids all the way across from Central Islip to a nursery school here? That's a whole nother level of traffic, lights, crossings, and everything else. And I, quite frankly, don't understand why you would do that. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. So I don't know if that's actually true or that's just made to sound like, oh, you're going to do this to improve the property. And that brings me to another point. It's the soccer thing and all that stuff and all that, I help run a club. I've been involved in soccer my whole life as well. Grew up in Brentwood, played for Brentwood Soccer. A few years ago, there was some struggling clubs in Bayshore and Brentwood, had no place to go. The club I'm with took them in. When we all met with the parents, we had fields here, because that's where we were based. It was too far for them. So what did we do? Okay. We made sure we went to Central Islip and we got use of the fields at the old New York Tech over there. When that dried up because they sold the property, they closed the school, we went to the Brentwood High School, met with their athletic directors, then they introduced us to the youth organizations there. We revitalized one of the Brentwood fields and they played there until that was of no longer use for them. They wanted to use it for other things. This year, we're going to be putting those teams at Timberline Park in Brentwood, which has just been reopened. It's also known as Roberto Clemente Park, and also Islip Town Hall. My point is, why would you want to travel all the way here to play soccer when there's places you can play somewhere else? It makes no sense to me. So I'm having trouble understanding, unless there's a definite plan, what's really going on. Now, in good faith, it's a church and it's a community, and that's great. So why don't we concentrate on fixing up what already exists and showing that you want to be part of the community and all in good faith and we're all working together, and then worry about what's coming next. Because right now I haven't seen anything demonstrated other than a lot of ambiguous comments, reversals and this and that and soccer. I don't know what's going on. So I'd just like to know, before anything is approved, what's the real plan? That's it.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Good
I have no
evening.
intention in getting up, but my name is Len Stevens, Stevens, and I live on 11 Twix Hills Road, and I've been there 25 years or so. And I've also been in an accident at River and Edgewood. I got hit there too. I didn't realize until tonight that the church has other property that it can use maybe to make a field or even the existing spot that's their nursery school could be used for a playland, for a park for the young kids. That's all well and good. But after listening to the people right nearby, and I have the same objection about that 200-foot rule. I don't know why you guys don't change that. That's ridiculous, because I live right around the corner and we never know about anything unless we see the sign up. And I was away and somebody had to tell me about the meeting. I'm a taxpayer in Smithtown, and this year my taxes went up through the roof. And why you guys took that piece of property off the tax roll, for a low price, I know you guys were taking care of it or whatever the town was because it was a foreclosure. I think it's ridiculous not to put it back on the tax rolls. There's plenty of houses that went up in Celestial Court right down the street. They could put a small little house there, set it back, and somebody would buy it. And all the other taxpayers in the town would be a lot happier. And I think that's part of your job, to make sure that everybody they're conforming with the rules and that the people who live here and pay taxes are happy. And I can tell you, I'm not too happy right now.
So,
Okay,
that's
thank
my,
you.
that's my point.
We don't have that authority.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Last time, is there anyone else that'd like to speak? No? All right. Mr. Bedell, would you like to come back and answer some of their concerns?
Just got to run through a few of them, not all of them. Try to keep it as brief as possible. Certainly a lot of things that come out here. A lot of people aren't aware of zoning, like what's allowed and what's not allowed. You have residential property and everybody thinks, I can just, only houses are allowed. Only a house can go there. Handed in a list of what's permitted. And certainly we have to balance community interests. We also have to balance property rights. Somebody was interested in putting up a small worship center there on the property. My clients wind up using it, I think, as a much less intensive use. So they bought it from a previous owner who had won the auction. I think, putting up a small church or something there might have been a little bit more intense than an open field. That's my opinion. There would have been parking, there would have been a building, there would have been septic, there would have been signs, there would have been a lot more traffic. So, I think that's a lower impact. The people they bought it from belonged to a religious institution. They were thinking about putting up a building there. So if we compare it to that, this is definitely no building being there, definitely less intense use. One thing I will agree with is that gentleman, John Cantwell, came up. He's an engineer. He mentioned about the dual access. I'm in full agreement with that. In fact, I would remove that from the application, that second driveway on the west side. It's not necessary. We were utilizing an existing curb cut, but there's absolutely no reason for that to be there. So that would diminish the request on that side. In fact, I would amend the application to reduce the request from 3 feet to 37 feet on that side. We've provided some, I'll say, low-impact gravel parking here, so the intent is not to create a parking field or something that's really visible from people's homes. In fact, I think it's pretty, the two properties that are infected, the young lady that came up and spoke about the bamboo issue, her house is pretty far away from all this and wouldn't even be able to see the parking. So I would say that I would amend the application for that. Also, there was a mention about the 25-foot buffer. That's not a part of the call, the request planning. Nobody said, listen, you got to have that 25-foot buffer. So otherwise, that would be in the request as far as the planting buffer and other things. And in fact, there's no building that's here, so I'm not sure, or really built structures as far as hardscape and other things. So I'm not sure exactly how that applies. Mrs. Peretz from 20 Twix Hills Road came up, says it doesn't affect her. She made a bunch of other statements, but there's a lot of people that this doesn't affect, but they felt it was necessary for them to come up. They wanted to come up and talk about how bad a church using this property is, and how people are going to use it for drugs, and they're going to come out and hang out there, and people are going to get in fights. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I've seen a lot of things. There's a lot of stuff kind of getting made up and created here. I also heard some mention of people's whiteness or something, and being from Central Islip, and I don't know if my client's complexion has something to do with the comments that are here, so I'm not sure.
Hey, stop. Hey, excuse me. Please sit down. Calm down, everybody.
I'm sorry. So, I only put these things on the record because I think they need to be said. I'm not sitting here in judgment of what everybody's saying, but there's things that people are kind of implying that, just kind of pulling things, what ifs, or this or that. This board knows if they wanted to do daycare or they wanted to do preschool or reactivate, they'd have to come in for the necessary permits and come before the board and ask for permission. It's not just something that they do. So I don't put on the record and say that they're not going to do it because I don't have a crystal ball in the future. We can't have a plan written out. They're a church. They have limited funds. They got the property. The property they're trying to clean up. They're not trying to make this look like some sort of detriment to the neighborhood. They're trying to be good neighbors. Do they know all the rules? No, nobody in this town knows the rules. They put up some signs, code enforcement says, take down the signs. They took down the signs. They didn't go and create additional problems. They're trying to clean things up, but they have limited resources. They're being looked at here like there's some sort of business, and they're making money, and they got all these ulterior motives. These are God-fearing people that are trying to just, bring people to their cause, and they're trying to do things for kids. So if people want to come and say it's something else, there's other intentions, that's their choice to do so, and it's this board's choice how they interpret that. So I'll just flip through a couple things, and not to take up too much time because everybody's been here and wants to keep moving. They know what their relation. Grace has used their parking lot. Somebody thinks they know what goings on there is. They don't use it every weekend. They maybe once or twice a year, whatever. If there's an issue, they're there. So that's how that came into the situation. And let me just go through different folks' comments here, just to make sure nobody is unaddressed here.
I have a couple here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Hours of operation. What do you perceive the hours of operation be for this field?
Daylight hours.
I'm sorry?
Daylight hours. That's it.
Is it
Yeah.
a weekend thing, or is it
I
7 days a
imagine, yeah.
week?
I'll let one of the representatives come up, but my guess is, it could be 7 days a week. They're at the church a few days a week, so my expectation is it's probably not more than a few days a week that they're using it. But I'll let one of their experts come up, or one of their staff members come up and address that.
Sure.
And sworn in.
And there was another concern about the age of the children?
There's not going to be any small children going unaccompanied into that area. As I mentioned, it's a church program. Everything's monitored. They watch everything. They're not playing soccer games. They're not bringing in a soccer tournament or something onto this property. So there's been a lot of things as far as what people think it is. They think it's like another kickers program last time. It's not that. This is an area that they want to bring people on their congregation so that they have something to do, so they're not out selling drugs, or they're not doing things that are being miscreant. They want the kids to be busy and to do things, and they're not bussing them in from other areas, whatever that means. So that's not happening. I understand the immediate neighbor's frustration. So certainly we would look to work with them. We're trying to work with them. We're trying to have a conversation. I understand that people don't want certain things next to them. Maybe they don't want a school going up next to them. Maybe they don't want a church going up to them. Maybe they don't want things that are allowed within the residential zone going up next to them. I understand. This is basically on the main road. It's got a church on one side. It's got a church across the street. I think this is, the least amount of impact that you can have on a neighborhood is this particular piece of property. If we were in the middle and there was, 30 houses around this one piece of property, all right, okay, I kind of understand. But that's not the case. There's activity that's already there. We have the Grace Church. We have their church. We have the temple is still active on Saturdays. So, there's things that's already relative to this location that make this appropriate. So it's not going to be, comparing this to the YMCA is ludicrous. I'm sorry. This is a playground for the church. It's not a giant building, and they're using it for all these other purposes. So that, somebody praying to God that this doesn't happen. I mean, I pray to God this happens because this is good to be good for the community and for kids. So with that, if there's any other questions that the board has, I'd be happy to answer it.
Bamboo removal, you're still doing bamboo removal there?
Listen, I put it on the record. They've cleaned up like 90-something% of this bamboo. Bamboo is a problem. I don't know if, I understand the woman, the neighbor came up, says it drove the bamboo. That bamboo has been a problem for, it's got to be over a decade. They tore down the house that was there, and there was bamboo all around it. They're doing things to clean up. They're not ignoring it, but they can only do so much at a time. They'd like to get a plan. They said, there's been thought, oh, just use the, clear out the land, do this. They don't want to do anything without the permission of the town. That's why we're here. We're not saying that this is going to happen. We're here to say, okay, listen, this is what we like to do, and we want full permission. We don't want to have any issues where, oh, there was a storage trailer for an outreach program that wasn't allowed to be there. Oh, they got rid of it. They're not looking to move forward and create any more problems. They want to solve problems.
All right.
All right? That concludes my presentation. I'm sorry that everybody had to be here so long.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
We need to take a timeout.
What? What's? Yeah. All right.
I wanted to adjourn
You
the
just-
case.
You just want to talk to me, right?
Well, not necessarily. I'm addressing the board. When I first came in, Mr. Donadio indicated that there was concern from the Fort Salonga Civic Association that they didn't have an opportunity to look at certain revisions to the plans submitted. They're right, because we had a conference call with with Liam Trotta, and he had some changes that he was suggesting, which we didn't fully vet out. So with the board's permission, I'd like to ask the board to adjourn the case. Hopefully, we can speak to the Fort Salonga Civic Association in the interim. I think it would be better for everybody.
February 11th?
There's one in between, but that's okay.
packed.
February 11th is fine.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So that's case number 18286. Basser Kaufman of Fort Salonga. That has been adjourned to February 11th. All right. We're going to take a 5-minute break.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18278, Lynn and Gregory Haggerty, 64 Stephen Place, Smithtown. The location of the property, the south side of Stephen Place, 457 feet east of Bezel Lane. The property is zoned R15. Thank you. The applicant is requesting a variance to permit environmentally sensitive land to be altered where depth to groundwater is equal to or less than 10 feet for a proposed 16-foot by 32-foot in-ground pool.
Good evening.
Smithtown, seeking a variance for a 16 by 32-foot in-ground pool with a maximum depth of 7 feet. We don't think it's substantial because about 4 houses that are adjacent to us have in-ground pools. Not everyone does. And we also are mindful of the 9 feet where the water table is, so that's why we're going to actually make it a lot less deep. And that's it.
All right. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application? No. Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Come on up, please. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Carol Sauer, S-A-U-E-R. I live at 55 Dorchester Road. I'm the backyard neighbor of Mr. Haggerty, who I just met. Anyhow, the reason why I'm here is my property is adjacent to his yard where the pool is going, or it's the proposed pool. And I know on Stephen Place, there've in the past been a lot of problems because of the high water table. And people's basements have been flooded. I never had that problem, but I'm right behind Stephen Place. So the reason I'm here is because I want to know what impact the proposed pool might have on my property. I'm there 52 years, and I never had a flooding problem.
But you have a pool.
Excuse me?
But you have a pool.
No, I don't have a pool.
You don't have a pool?
No.
Yeah. I think he's situating the pool in the upper corner of the property. It's further up from your backyard. It's not directly across from your backyard.
Is it going closer to Stephen Place, towards the front of the yard?
It's up in that corner up there.
Oh, I see your neighbor has a pool. On 53 Dorchester has a pool.
53 has a pool and
Right.
57 has a pool.
Yeah, but this is all the way up.
You know, I can't tell by looking at
Well,
it.
you see where the circle is?
Yeah,
That's your property,
that's my house, right. yeah.
right down there.
Right, right.
So the
I
pool is
see.
going way up there.
It's going
It-
north.
Yes.
Mhm.
And
No, I just, because I got this letter.
No, I understand. I'm just saying, this is an assumption on my part. You know, your next-door neighbor has an in-ground pool, and if it doesn't impact you,
Yeah.
the likelihood that that pool would impact you is kind of nil.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, since I got the letter, I thought I better look into it.
Oh, sure, not a problem.
So you don't, nobody thinks it would, because the water table is so high?
He's only going down 7 feet.
That's it?
Yeah,
7 feet?
7 feet at the lowest point, you know.
Okay.
Usually, I guess it's 3 feet, then it slopes down to 7.
All right. That was all my question.
All right.
And I wanted to be invited to his pool party, that's all.
Maybe we all can go. I said, maybe we all can go. Thank you. Anybody else in the audience like to be heard on this application? Give a motion to close the application, please?
So moved?
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18280, J&L Developers, 35 Mowbray Lane, Smithtown. The location of the property is the north side of Mowbray Lane, 1,006 feet west of Old Willets Path. The property is zoned R43. Thank you. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum required lot area from 43,560 square feet to 33,500 square feet, to reduce the minimum road frontage from 150 feet to 100 feet, to reduce the minimum side yard from 24 feet to 20 feet, and total side yards from 60 feet to 55 feet, for a proposed 3,182 square foot, two-story single-family dwelling with a 521 square foot garage under.
Good evening.
Good evening. Louis Castellano, 2693 Middle Country Road, Lake Grove, New York. I am one of the principals of J&L Developers. We're here tonight because we'd like to build a home on this site. We've done extensive work to get the health department approval. The variance will not be an impact on the adjacent properties. The request is minimal. The benefits cannot be achieved by any other method. The variance will not cause an adverse effect on the environment, and the difficulty was caused by the owner because all the lots in the area are the same, and it was a similar variance granted 2 doors away to Mr. Neal, case number 15206. If you have any questions, we'll be here to answer them.
The garage is underneath the home?
Yes.
All right. Anybody on the board have any questions on the application?
No question.
Planning?
No, thank you.
No. Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Come on up, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Kevin Dunn, D-U-N-N. I live at 39 Mowbray Lane. Just a few things. My wife has lived here since her dad built the house at 39 Mowbray Lane and several other houses in the Pines in the late 60s. So my wife has been there for a while. This property was a place to play. The property in question was a place to play, hike. Neighbors would ride their horses through that property to get safely across Old Willets to go into Blydenburg. That can't happen anymore. I remember coming home one day, seeing multiple construction equipment leaving the site after removing about 95% of the trees and vegetation, leaving it a barren, lifeless piece of property. That was about 4 years ago. All I can think about was how could this happen to an area that was deemed, and it's on the maps, as a town park. We found out later that it was sold under very questionable circumstances, which we won't go into. Now the property was sold to a developer who wants to construct a house on a piece of property that's not zoned for one. He came in, removed the remaining trees, and started excavation. There are piles of sand with no silt fence or any attempt at erosion control whatsoever. Every time it rains, like this evening, sand washes into the catch basins and the street is constantly full of sand. It's a driving hazard, not to mention who is going to empty the catch basins when they get full? The town? Simple construction protocol not being followed. What's next? I would like to see the town make every attempt to restore it back to the way it was, however that may be. Neighbors bought their houses thinking that piece of property would never be developed and could enjoy for generations. We deserve nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else like to be heard in this application? Sir? Good evening.
Hi, my name's Tom Wynn, W-Y-N-N-E, 37 Mowbray Lane. It adjoins the property being discussed. Mr. Dunn made some very good points there, that it was parkland, and it was in complete secrecy sold to a private individual. This had to go to Albany for approval, and the governor had to sign that bill, and there was no notification whatsoever to the neighbors or the community that they were going to convert the parkland to private use. I think the town perhaps had some wisdom when they allowed this to happen, which I wish had never happened, because the requirement for the 43,560 feet for a home is not met by the regulations or by the boundaries of the property now. It only has the 33,500. So I think the intent was they'd sell the property, yes, but not to be developed. The thing to keep in mind with regard to how you evaluate these things is, did it change the character of the neighborhood? Yes, it did, because it was undeveloped parkland. It was used extensively by children. They had a big bicycle path up there. It was used by people with horses to access the parkland, which is still behind it and now inaccessible from Mowbray Lane because of this private sale. I myself have horse property. That was the access into the parkland, and that parkland goes all the way down almost to Old Willets Path, and you could access the bridle paths in Blydenburg Park through that area. So that's now not accessible. So it did change the character. The trees are gone. You can't bring them back. It was beautifully wooded. Is there some other means to accommodate this? I know there's a young couple. I feel sorry for them. They're waiting for this house to be built. But there are properties available in the Pines to purchase that have houses on it. Is it an impact on the environment? Yeah, the trees are gone and the sand is running in. And of course, that would be corrected when it's all developed and landscaped, but you know, it's going to take a long time for trees to come back. So I implore the board to consider the fact that the town may have set it up in an area where they didn't desire a house to be built. I would be very pleased to see the town buy it back and restore it to the parkland that it was. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else? No one else?
I believe all that took place prior to us buying it. whatever the story is, this is the first we're hearing of it. We purchased the property for over $300,000. We had full intention of building a home there. If there's any sand in the drains, that's our obligation to clean it. Engineering would be after us in a heartbeat. As far as the dirt that was removed, we had to get our Board of Health approval, we had to actually dig down 57 feet with a crane to get the cesspools in first, in order to get because of the soil conditions in the area. So all that was done in order to get our building permit. But as far as anything that happened 4 years ago, we have no knowledge of it.
So moving forward, you will take every effort to control the sand from leaching?
Absolutely. We've been building
Into the-
Smithtown for over 40 years. We've never had any complaints against us. If there's something that has to be done, we'll take care of it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18281, Linda and Todd O'Connell, 9 Adrian Court, Hauppauge, the location of the property, the north side of Adrian Court, 214 feet north of Adrian Lane. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to permit environmentally sensitive land to be altered where depth to groundwater is equal to or less than 10 feet for an existing 227 square foot first floor addition, 48 square foot second floor addition, and a 119 square foot shed. Reduce the minimum side yard from 12 feet to 10 feet for an existing hot tub, and from 12 feet to 4 feet for an existing 119 square foot shed. Reduce the total side yards from 28 feet to 14 feet for the existing hot tub and the existing 119 square foot shed.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. To tell you a little bit about this property is, Todd O'Connell, 9 Adrian Court, Hauppauge, New York. You're welcome. This particular property is a through lot. It goes from Adrian Court through to Mount Pleasant Road. So with the zoning, where you're allowed to be closer to the property lines for sheds and things like that, you have to be in the very back portion of the property. The property is 400 feet deep. So, so pretty much anything I do on this property, if I'm going to be any closer to the property lines, would require some relief, as well as because of the depth to groundwater. This was part of a 4-lot subdivision that was approved back in I believe it was 1994. It was approved, this particular subdivision. Part of the conditions of this subdivision approval was that anything that was constructed on the house would be a slab on grade, which everything that's in question here is all slab on grade in terms of the ground story structure. The structures themselves that are in question do meet the existing setbacks of the house in terms of the living space of it. So the living space in terms of setbacks to the property lines is not in question. The hot tub, which does slightly encroach towards the neighbor, which happens to be a shopping center, really has no impact on any other neighbors. It's a shopping center that's next to us. So I'm not affecting any particular neighbors from the hot tub aspect of it. On the opposing side, where I do have a 10-foot by 11-foot shed, there's a neighbor on that side. That shed has been in existence for 21 years, as well as the addition that's in question here today has all been in existence for, actually, let me correct myself, it's actually 20 years it's been in existence. The neighbor itself that's directly affected by that shed, which is 4 feet from the property line, I spoke to him directly. He's a fairly new neighbor. He's been there now for about a year. He has absolutely no objection to the shed being there. In fact, he said he enjoys it there. It gives him a little bit of privacy as well. The property is meticulously maintained. We try to keep the property very park-like, and didn't feel it would have any negative impact on the neighbors, on the character of the neighborhood. No negative environmental impact, as we did follow the requirements of the subdivision that was approved back in 1994. You know, we don't feel it's substantial. The structure of the house area itself does meet all the setbacks. We're not going down into the groundwater. We're above the level of the groundwater with all the structures that we have. So we're not actually going down into the groundwater at all. With that, I'd love to answer any questions this board may have. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is one of the sheds being removed?
On the very back corner of the
Back
property
corner?
is being removed, yes, so the way back along Mount Pleasant Road. It's a 10 by 10 metal shed which is being removed. And we actually already hired the landscapers to do it, just waiting for them to get there.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? No. Planning?
No, thank you.
Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you, have a great evening.
You too.
All righty. The next case on the agenda, case number 18282, Douglas Wall, 10 Marion's Lane, Fort Salonga. The location of the property, the north side of Marion's Lane, 50 feet north of Brookfield Road. The property is zoned R43. The applicant is requesting a variance to permit environmentally sensitive lands to be altered for the replacement of a bulkhead.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. My name is Edward Carr. I'm with Taplow Consulting.
Do you have power of attorney?
I do, and I submitted to the ZBA's council a limited power of attorney signed by the owner and it had previously been reviewed by the planning department. I also gave the statement for the sign
I just want to
going
check
up
to make
and
sure we had it.
Yeah. So.
Okay, again, state your name, spell your last name, and
Sure.
the address.
It's Edward Carr, C-A-R-R. My address is 22 New Harbor Road, Northport, New York, 11768. Taplow Consulting, T-A-P-L-O-W Consulting. So I'm a licensed marine engineer, and I helped design the bulkhead that's being proposed. What's there right now is an existing legal bulkhead. The bulkhead was installed in the 1960s. It faces Long Island Sound. It protects the upland property. It had a permit when it was built. The owner of the property wishes to replace the bulkhead because, quite frankly, it's in bad shape. It's rotting. We were told by the town that if we replaced it in place, in kind, there'd be no need to actually come before the Zoning Board of Appeals. But what triggered a ZBA application for a variance is that the bulkhead is not exactly a replacement in kind. There are two modifications that are now triggering a ZBA issue. One modification is that the New York State DEC, which required us to get a permit, has an as-of-right provision after Hurricane Sandy that if you're going to build a new bulkhead in New York State, the DEC will entertain, as of right, your ability to build it 18 inches higher. And that's to mitigate against anticipated sea level rise and an increase in intensity of storms with warmer ocean waters. And the applicant has taken advantage of that. So the new bulkhead that's going in place is proposed to be built 18 inches higher than the old one. I should point out that even with the 18 inches in height addition, the neighboring bulkheads on both sides of the property will still be higher than this one. This is a short bulkhead right now. It's only about 4 feet tall. It's now going to be about 5.5 feet tall from the grade of the beach. The bulkhead to the east and west that adjoin it are much higher. So this will still be the shortest bulkhead on the beach, even with the 18-inch increase in place in kind. The second piece of the variance is that we requested that the DEC allow us to put in a single row of toe stone. It's basically large boulders that are lined up like soldiers in a single line, one boulder next to another boulder next to another boulder. So it's just a single string of boulders, like a string of pearls, that sit in front of the bulkhead. And the reason for that is that if you do get a tidal surge, you've got 8 pounds a gallon of waves and energy that slam into the bulkhead. So the toe stone is designed to absorb that wave energy and prevent damage to the bulkhead. So it's something that the DEC allows when you apply for a DEC tidal wetlands permit. A single row of toe stones we put in for it, and they, of course, approved it. So both the addition of the toe stone and the 18 inches have triggered this ZBA variance. I also submitted to the council the proof of the sign going up 5 days, at least 5 days before the hearing that was posted. And I sent a photograph before that, when the sign was put up 5 days to the planning department, so they were aware, Allison in the planning department. I also submitted the proof of mailing of the 10 certified mailing envelopes that were mailed out. We got 9 of them back. The one that we did not get back is from Mr. Barry, I believe, who lives at number 4 Marion's Lane, I think 2 or 3 doors down. So we don't know why that didn't come back, but we had 90% return.
The was it toe stone? Is that like
Yes.
armor stone?
It's armor stone. It's basically a 2 to 4 ton boulder. Figure something about half the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. And you'll take that and just put it right in front of the new bulkhead. So it'll be a stone that's maybe 4 feet by 4 feet by 4 feet, maybe 5 by 5 by 5, something along those lines. Weighs about 2 to 4 tons, depending how large it is, and that'll break up the wave energy, should it ever hit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone on the board have any questions?
No question.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried, thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18284, Nicole Prechkel, 127 George Street, Smithtown. The location of the property, the northeast corner of George Street and Annette Avenue. The property is zoned R10. Thank you. The applicant is requesting variances to permit an accessory structure in the required front yard on George Street and Annette Avenue, and to reduce the minimum front yard from 25 feet to 10 feet for a proposed 20-foot by 32-foot in-ground pool. Reduce the front yard setback from the lot line on Annette Avenue from 10 feet to 0 for a proposed 6-foot fence. Permit environmentally sensitive lands to be altered where depth to groundwater is equal to or less than 10 feet for a proposed in-ground pool.
Good evening.
Good evening. Tracy Rivera, agent for the applicant. Office is located at 80 Terry Street, Patchogue, New York. Just like to first start off, taking notice that the property is a corner parcel. As we all know, corner parcels are looked at very differently with zoning. Anything you really do on a corner parcel makes you have 2 front yards, and you end up going before the Board of Appeals. So all we're looking to do here today is propose an in-ground pool and put up a 6-foot fence on the corner parcel. You can tell by the survey there's really no other place to locate the pool. And that's it. Any other questions? It's a common application.
The 6-foot fence on Annette, that's on the property line?
Yes, it's on the property line, and it's currently 4 feet, about 4.5 feet high, but once you put it in pool, in-ground pool, you're not going to want a 4-foot fence.
Right.
Privacy
And
reasons.
you don't have much room there either.
There's no room at all. So it's not self-created. You're within harmony of every neighborhood. If you look at aerial views, a lot of people have in-ground pools on corner properties. There's no place else to really locate the pool.
but it's very rare that we approve a 6-foot fence on the property line. Is there any way you can move that fence back somewhat?
If that's what the board would like, then yes.
Any other questions from the board? No. Planning?
No, thank you.
No. Anyone in the audience like to be heard in this application? Sir, come on up.
Good evening. Kevin Fisher, 28 Annette Avenue. It's Fischer. Again, with the water table there. So I'm directly across from where the pool will go, and I already have water problems in my basement. So just wondering what the impact of that is. Have no objection to the pool itself. And just happened to notice with the fence there, there is a stop sign there, and everybody just blows down that block without stopping. So I think a 6-foot fence is a very bad idea for that intersection. And that's everything. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
If he's saying on record everyone's blowing the stop sign, I think we need to have a police officer called over there. Yeah, first off, and second off, that would be more of a reason to be able to be allowed to have a 6-foot fence is because you have to stop already, so it shouldn't be any traffic impediments. There shouldn't be any issues there. As for the water table, this is the first I'm hearing of it. We did have to submit a groundwater test, a soil test that I did have the property owners do and was submitted over to, to be reviewed.
You had to dig a test hole?
Yes, we did do a test hole. It's on, I already submitted the,
When did you hit water? How?
The report should be in the file.
yeah. I did have that done. I was advised by Blaze that that'd be something that the board would want.
And the deepest part of the pool is what depth?
That, I wasn't given that information. I only received the application with the denial, so I wasn't part of the denial with the building department. From my experience, it's very rare that they
10
ask.
feet.
I'm sorry?
10 feet.
Okay.
So obviously, you're not going to put a
Yes.
pool in that's 10 feet deep.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, just to let you know, if they hit groundwater at 10 feet or deeper, there's no need for the variance.
Oh.
It's only if it's less than 10 feet.
10.1. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
You have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18285, Frederick Marsilio, The Garden Grill, 64 North Country Road, Smithtown. The location of the property, the east side of North Country Road, 250 feet west of Judges Lane. The property is zoned NB. The applicant is requesting a special exception to permit outdoor dining in the NB zoning district. A variance of a special exception standard that outdoor dining not be located within 150 feet of any residence district.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Fred Marsilio. I own the Garden Grill restaurant at 64 North Country Road. Proud to say that we are a restaurant establishment that has been in Smithtown for 25 years. And the variance that we're requesting is to help us to grow with other restaurants in the area and permit dining outside. I want it to be noted that the dining area that we're proposing will be facing commercial space and not residential space. And Chris Tartaglia is
Would you like this
representing
gentleman
me.
to speak on your
Yes,
behalf?
I would like
Fine.
Chris to. He's an excellent planner, and I'd like him to explain what we're doing.
All right, great. Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, appearance on behalf of the applicant, my name is Chris Tartaglia, principal owner of the firm High Point Engineering, located 521 Conklin Street, Farmingdale, New York, 11735.
Can you spell your last name, Chris? so we can get it
Sure
correct?
can. Tartaglia.
Thank you.
You're welcome. As Mr. Marsilio mentioned, we are here tonight to discuss a proposal for expansion of the existing Garden Grill restaurant, which consists of a 977 square foot first floor addition with a 506 square foot basement beneath. Also included in the proposed development is an 8-foot wide by 40-foot long covered porch or deck with a roof overhang. And that will serve as the area for the outdoor dining, which is proposed. Just for the record, the total areas that are proposed, first floor, there's 3,441 square feet existing. We're adding 977 square feet, so the total ground floor area is 4,418 square feet. There is an existing second floor on the restaurant of 982 square feet. That is not proposed to change or be expanded. And the basement has an existing footprint of 650 square feet. As I mentioned previously, we're adding 506 square feet, so the total basement area will be 1,156 square feet. In total, the floor area, which is the first and second floor areas, are proposed at 5,400 square feet, existing and proposed. Also making note of the site plan that's to my left, and that was up on the screen previously, there's an 850 square foot storage building located on the north side of the parcel. That's existing to remain with no changes. Essentially, the purpose of this expansion is to enhance the offering of this long-established restaurant within the town, and to have the offering to offer the outdoor dining to be consistent with a lot of other local restaurants which are now offering a similar experience. It's important to note that as part of the proposed development that we are fully compliant with the required number of parking stalls. Specifically, 58 stalls are required, 58 are provided. As part of this development, we are adding 10 additional parking stalls to meet that 58 stall requirement. So the relief that we're seeking from this board tonight is as follows. We need a parking setback for 2 locations on the property. Along the northerly end, we have an existing parking stall which is located 9.8 feet from the property line where 10 feet is required. So we're seeking about a 2.5-inch variance there. Again, that's an existing condition. We don't believe that that's significant, but I'll go through the 5 findings for each of the variances momentarily. Along the east lot line, which is also the rear lot line, there's an existing parking stall which is set back 2.2 feet where 10 feet is required. That's a little bit more of a significant variance where 8 feet is being sought in terms of relief. However, this again is an existing condition. The other 2 items that were before the board here tonight is a special exception for outdoor dining and also a variance for relief from the 150-foot required setback to the residential district where 79 feet is provided from the residential district to the outdoor dining space. I'd like to run through, if I may, the area variance considerations for first the parking setback, the 5 points, and then for the outdoor dining setback. And if the board wishes, I can run through briefly, given the hour is late, the standards for special exception uses for the outdoor dining area and how they apply to this case. So with that, I'll start with the parking setback 5 considerations. First one is the variance would not produce an impact on the adjacent properties or neighborhood. We believe that is the case because the non-conforming parking conditions have existed for many years with no history of negative effects or complaints by neighbors or effects on neighboring properties, and those existing conditions are not slated to change. Item 2, request is not substantial because, again, as I indicated previously, one of the parking setbacks, we're seeking a 2.5-inch setback variance. I think my surveyor just did a little bit too good of a job in that case in locating that stall. With regard to the other parking variance where we're seeking a 2.2-foot setback against 10 feet required, again, it's an existing condition against a densely vegetated buffer area. Really no impact to any of the adjoining neighbors and is certainly not significant as a result. The benefit cannot be achieved by an alternative because if the parking stalls were relocated to conforming setback locations, it would result in one of two scenarios. One would be that a required access aisle would be reduced to an unsafe distance and create hazardous circulation around the property for the vehicles, or we would need to simply